Hi, okay, recording. The rest of the workshop is going to be in English, so 要是有人需要这个中文的讲解的话呢，可以在 comments 里面讲一下，或者有任何问题可以问一下。If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put it into the chat. We do have moderators who's watching the chat, so they can help with that. If you need any kind of translation from English Chinese, just let me know. But most of the workshop is going to be in English today because we do want to make sure that any students who are here who are English speakers, they can get the most out of this workshop. Okay, so I am go ahead and going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the common app, the common application, which will actually open August 1st. And then we're going to spend the second half of this workshop talking more about the essay and brainstorming. So I don't know if everybody is already familiar with the Common App. So this is really just going to be very basic from like assuming you don't already know everything. And then we're going to just build up from the foundation. Okay, so don't worry if you don't know what any of this means. I'm going to explain everything. Okay. And even if you are a parent or a student who is not currently applying, that means like any student who is not in they're not a rising senior, we welcome you to be here and ask any questions, to listen, because the earlier that you're learning about this whole process, the better. And as the president said, there will be follow-ups, like more workshops in the series that will address different questions in different sections of the college planning process. So stay tuned. Also, if you notice on the bottom right, all of my contact information is there. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime after the workshop if you don't think of anything right now. Okay. All right, so first, just a little bit about me. I did grow up in the US. I moved to the US when I was 9. So I started, like, I didn't know any English until when I moved here in 3rd grade. And then I grew up and graduated high school in Ohio. And then I went to Cornell for engineering. I majored in material science and engineering and had a minor in biomedical engineering. And then while I was working, I got my Master's of Engineering degree from University of Michigan. And then I worked for GE for a number of years. And throughout that time, I was interviewing for Cornell and helping with the admission process as an alumni interviewer. And during that time, a lot of people kind of came and just asked me if they can get some help from me, get some advice. And that's kind of how this whole thing started. It was kind of just really helping people. And then I really enjoyed it. So I went to get a certificate from the University of California at Irvine, which is an independent education consultant certificate. And then I am a member of the ICA, it's like the Independent Education Consultant Association, which is a professional association with lots of great like colleagues that we help each other. So it's been a really great journey. So I've been doing this for like more than 15 years now. So lots of students, lots of schools, lots of different majors. Always exciting to meet new students and then learn about their career paths. And then I just also want to mention that I did do some teaching in management and marketing at Russell Sage as well. So I kind of been on different sides. I've been a student, I've been a interviewer, I've been college consultant, but also as a professor as well. So first of all, just like a little bit background on the Common App. I know when I was applying for college, that was like 2001. There wasn't really that much online. Like every school that we applied to, it was pretty much a paper application. And I know it's very hard to imagine like doing that now, but the nice thing is that now you have the Common App, which just means that you just do one application and it covers more than 1,000 colleges, which is awesome. So you don't have to do a lot of repeat work. There is one big essay, as we call it. So we call it the Common App Essay. There are 7 different prompts. So there are 7 different topics or topic areas that you can pick from. You only need to pick one. Okay, do not need to write more than one. Maximum is 650 words. So that's what we call it, kind of the big essay, similar length to like your standard 5-paragraph essay you might write in a school, but it doesn't have to be in that 5-paragraph framework. It will open August 1st. It's actually open now, and you can go in there anytime throughout the year and look at it, but it will refresh in August 1st, which means that if you go in there and enter anything, all of that is pretty much going to go away, and it would be like completely refreshed on August 1st. So I'd recommend, you definitely can go and just make a free account now. Just be aware that if you fill out anything, it's probably not going to be there like after August 1st. So it's fine to just wait until August 1st, just a few days from now, and then just make an account then. Okay, but it's totally fine to make one now and then just look through. That's fine. Just don't spend too much time filling it out yet. Okay. I do also want to mention that there are some schools that are not in the Common App. So even though the Common Application covers over 1,000 schools, there are some schools that are not part of the Common Application, which means they have their separate independent application processes. And since we are collaborating with Vancouver, Washington, Chinese Association here, I do want to mention the University of Washington does not, it's a different timeline. So you do want to make sure that your application, University of Washington, is November 15th. It's a little bit different than a lot of the other schools. And the University of California is also like a totally different application process. Okay. Actually, I think there might be a little bit, my wording here might be a little bit wrong here. I do think you can apply through the University of Washington through the Common App, but it is just a different deadline. So sorry for that misnomer there. Okay, so just be aware, most of the deadlines are going to be December, January. Just those UC and UW, they are going to have a little bit earlier deadline compared to most of the schools. And next time, we're going to talk about like early decision, early action, and all the different ways you can apply through our strategy workshop, which will be August 23rd. And we're going to go more in depth about that. But today, we're just really going to talk about the Common App and the essays. Okay, so go back to Common App. Maximum, you can apply for 20 colleges in that application. And then it's important to also use that system to monitor recommendation submissions. You can also do application fee waivers from there. So every school is going to have, most schools will have an application fee. Sometimes it's like $60, sometimes it's $80, something like that. But if you qualify for a fee waiver, which means that if you meet certain income requirements, like if it's like a free or reduced lunch, then you can get an application fee waiver, which can be very useful. So if you have questions about that, definitely talk to your school counselor about that. That's something that they can help you with. And then there is also an additional information section, which a lot of people don't really use. And I want to emphasize that it is an important section to pay attention to, because you can have a lot more information there that would be helping you like stand out from the other people. And then also just to be aware, there is an optional COVID-19 or natural disaster section where you can put any special or extenuating circumstances as well. Okay, so I'm going to actually, let's see. Okay, one more thing, and then I'm going to actually jump into the Common App from a website. That way you can take a look at it. So let's first talk a little bit about just the elements of the application. There's actually many portions of the application. The graphic I have here basically shows that, you have the foundation and then everything on top is adding value. So if you don't have foundation, right, or the foundation is kind of weak, GPA, courses, SAT scores, those things are going to be kind of like the first step that you really need for a lot of the more selective schools. Doesn't mean that if you don't have, perfect GPA or perfect SAT scores or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're automatically not going to be eligible, but it does limit your options, okay? And then the second step is you have recommendation letters and extracurricular activities section. So I do want to emphasize that the recommendation letters are super important. They're actually, became more important over the years now, especially because of AI. And yes, like the essay is very important, but nowadays, with ChatGPT, like it's a little bit difficult to say, even from a college admission perspective, like how much of the essays are AI or how much of it is not. And we can get into that a little bit more in later workshops as well when we do that deep dive for essays. But just be aware that recommendation letters can be a really key portion, and only because that it is one of the portions that you have the least control over as a student or as a family, right? You can control your GPAs, your courses, your scores, your extracurriculars. You can control a lot of those things, but how does your teacher or your counselor write about you is actually mostly out of your controls, and we can work on making that the best that we can. But colleges, from the college's perspective, that's probably the most independent view of the student that they would actually trust. So don't just not worry about the recommendation letters. It's definitely very important. And then we have the main essay, which we just talked about, like we call it kind of the big essay, 650 words. And then many colleges will have supplemental essays, especially the more selective colleges. They might have 1, 2, or 3 different supplemental essays as well, okay? And then what's not on here, kind of the light green boxes that you see, are the special hooks, interview, and demonstrated interest. These are not explicitly in the common application, but they can make a difference, and sometimes a big difference, in whether a student is admitted. So special hooks meaning, special athletics, could be arts or like music, and then interview. Not every school cares about it, but the schools that do care about it, they do weigh that into as a factor. And then demonstrated interest, again, not every school cares about it, but this basically means that, did you visit the school? Did you open their emails? Did you have any communication with their admission department? Especially for early decision applicants, this can be a really important thing, is that they want to be sure that if you are applying to the school and they admit you, then there's a high chance that you're actually going to enroll in that school. Okay, so I'm not really looking at the chat, but I just do want to pause there. If there's any questions, moderators, please let me know. Okay, so I'm going to actually switch gears. I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to share my browser. That way we can look at the actual Common App. Okay. So I have an account. And I will say too, like, if parents, like, if you want to just see what this looks like, it's totally fine for you to create a practice account using a parent email. Okay, you don't have to do this, but you can if you want to. See, so like, see where up here where it says practice applicant, I just have a practice account. Okay, this is just to show what it looks like. I'm actually gonna sign out right now, so you can see what it looks like when you go here. All you have to do is Google Common App, apply.commanapp.org, and then you will choose here whether you're a first year student, or a transfer student. And then if you've never made an account before, you would click right here where it says create an account. Okay. So if I were to say create an account, then you would pick what kind of account, okay? And then I'm gonna first log in here. That way I can show you the inside. We're just gonna quickly go through like all the spots that you would need to fill out for this common application. So here you do have like different tabs on top here. You have a dashboard, my colleges, common app, college search, and financial aid, okay? So I'm gonna first go to this common app tab. This is where you would put all your basic information. So profile, I'm not gonna go too much into this. It's just like really, address, contact, demographics, language, all this stuff, pretty self-explanatory, okay? And then the next part, family. This is actually gonna ask for your parents' information. It's gonna ask for the parent name, siblings. It's also gonna ask for what college, like what high, like, what's it called? Okay, right here. What education level? What is the highest education level of the parent? So, I would fill that in. And then if you say your parent went to a college or university, it will ask you how many colleges, okay, one, and then it will ask you to actually put in the college that your parents went to. There's a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is that some schools do care about alumni relationships. So like if one or both of your parents went to a school and the student, the kid is applying to that same school, then they may get preferential treatment because one of the parents is a graduate of that school, okay? Or a sibling. So if you were in, if say your brother or sister went to a certain school, they may potentially give you preference based on that. But although this is not written in here, some schools will actually have a different spot where you will put that in, okay? Another reason is that many schools are under pressure to enroll more students that are first generation college students. So if one or both of the parents have not graduated college before, then that is kind of like a hook almost, or like a reason that they may look at your application with more desirability, okay? So I would say for a lot of our immigrant families, if you have, say, I know like in China, right? Like there's different, like if you say, I don't know, in Chinese you have like, like regular college, and then you have like 大专, right? Then you have like kind of like a technical school. So I would say, if you were like parents or like graduate from a technical school in China, you would say that as kind of like a trade school or a community college, okay? And then if you say you're graduated from a college, but actually you're from like a technical school, then that may actually hurt you. Because if you graduate from a trade school or community college, that's actually in a different category compared to like a regular like college or university. So there'll be a big difference between those two things. So I would just advise you to pick the correct one. I mean, obviously you want to be honest and you want to put, like you don't want to say you never went to college when you did go to college, but I would just be careful to pick the kind of college that is actually correct and not accidentally put in college or university when the parent actually went to a trade school, like a 大专 kind of a school. Does that make sense? So that's just something to be aware of, okay? And then education. So this education tab is referring to the education of the student, okay? So you would go here, put in your high school, date of entry, whether it's a boarding school or not. Did you graduate from this school or will you, right? So obviously, our rising seniors have not graduated, but you will still say yes because you will graduate. And then you can put in here if your plan is changing or if you're had taken a gap year or whatever, most students will say no change in progression. That just means you will graduate on the expected date. Okay, unless it's not that, then you will pick something different. Okay. And if you had gone to other high schools, say there was a transfer, maybe you went to 9th grade in one school and then 10th grade with the rest of your high school, then there is a spot where you can put in other schools, okay? And then some students will have taken some coursework at a college or university. So whether this is a community college or like an online course where you get credit from a college or university, you would put that here, okay? And then grades. So this is a little bit different depending on your high school. Many high schools will have a system which is called Naviance or some other system that goes directly into Common App, and then they don't have to do this, okay? But many students will have to do this, basically take your transcript and put in every semester what grades you got. So you kind of manually have to do this, which is kind of a pain. And it's also nice to know that because of the Common App, you only have to do it once, okay? But this part does take some time, and you do want to make sure that you do want to make sure that you're doing it really accurately. Like you don't want to put in like a B when it was actually like a different grade. You want to make sure you're putting it in from your transcript as just very carefully and check it twice, check it 3 times, make sure it's correct, okay? And then this part, you have honors. So you actually have spots. So you have actually 5 spots here to put in any kind of honors. So this is different than the extracurricular activity section. Actually, this is more what we call like the awards section. So if you had received any kind of like robotics competition or like science Olympiad competition, it could be a sports or music competition or art competition, you would put that here, okay? And you have 5 spots for that. So this is not saying like, oh, I just did, tennis for 5 years or 4 years or whatever. You wouldn't put that here. It would only be like specific awards that you won. And they will ask you what grade level you got this award, whether it's a school level, state or regional level, national level, or international level, okay? And then community-based organizations, for most of our students, this is going to be 0. This is not asking like about volunteering, okay? This is not like, oh, I volunteered at, food bank or something. No, this is not what this is. If this is more for like special community programs or organizations that help with college planning. So this could be like Quest Bridge or any of these like special things that you see here. If you have worked with any of these organizations, definitely put it in. But I just want to make sure, we know that this is not your regular kind of volunteering. This is more for students who are in a specific program that helps them with college. Okay, so for most of us, probably 0. But if you have questions about this, you can certainly ask me or ask your high school counselor as well. Okay, and then future plans. I mean, this part is not like super important, but they do ask you like, what's the highest degree that you want to earn? So if you know that you want to be a doctor, or if you know you want to be a lawyer or get a PhD, then you can put that in here. And then you can also put in a career interest. Again, all of this stuff here is not really binding, so I wouldn't worry too much about picking the correct one. There's really no right or wrong answer, and it doesn't mean that just because you pick something here that you have to actually do it. You don't have to, but just be aware that they are asking for this as part of your application to get to know you a little bit better. I do advise like pre-med students or for students who are like very entering into very competitive fields. And if you're not super sure, say like you're not super sure you want to go to medical school, but you may want to go to medical school, you may not necessarily want to put in like medicine here. You might want to put in something like a little bit like related, to that. So just the only reason I'm saying this is that, you don't want to pick something that is super, super competitive when you're not even sure that you want to do it. Does that make sense? If you're for sure like you want to do it, go ahead and do it, and then you want to have your whole application support it, that's awesome. But if you're not sure, don't pick something that is super competitive, because that can go against, like that can work against your favor. Okay. All right, so then next part, testing. This is pretty straightforward. This is where you put in your AP test scores if you have any IB, TOEFL, or SAT, ACT. So all of these test scores you can put in here. And then many schools will also ask you to send those scores as well. So, these are not official scores where you're putting in, but you do want to make sure that you're actually putting the correct scores here. Okay. Activities. Okay, so we're gonna dive deep into this in another session, but I just want to quickly show you what this looks like. Basically, you have 10 spots for extracurricular activities, and for each of these spots, you have like they'll ask you like activity type. Okay, so there's all kinds of different activity types you can put in here. And then you're gonna put in a position or a leadership description. So if you don't have a leadership position, then many times it's just gonna be like member, right? Or like team player, you can put that. The organization name, the name of that organization. So this could be the club name or the activity name. And then you have 150 characters, okay? Not 150 words, you have 150 characters to describe your accomplishments and any kind of recognition that you received. So it's very short, actually. So you don't have a lot of space, but you do want to be really clear on what was your role. And then it will ask you which grades that you participated, whether it's during the school year or school breaks or all year. And then it will ask you hours per week and weeks per year. So it's pretty detailed. Like it's asking you basically like how many years did you do this activity? How long did you spend on this activity? How many hours? Okay, so they want to kind of get an idea for what's the commitment, like how much time did you dedicate into this activity. And then the question is that do I intend to participate in a similar activity in college? And some will be yes, some will be no, depending on the activity and depending on the student, but this is not super important. Okay, so then you can just add another activity, but there's maximum 10 of them. And I would recommend to put like the higher value or the activities that you're spending the most time on to be the first 1, 2, or 3, and then put the less like important activities later. Okay. Okay, and then now we're getting to the writing part, and then I'm going to switch over back to the PowerPoint real quick, and then we're going to talk about brainstorming and essays, but this is basically what you're going to be filling out. Okay, so I do not recommend writing your essay in here. Okay, writing your essay, I would say most cases that I've seen takes between 4 to 6 weeks or more to really craft a personal statement that is like really good, right? That stands out and you're happy with. So I definitely would not recommend just like writing in here, as in the text box. Definitely start another document once you're happy with it, then copy paste in here. Notice that you do have the option to bold, italicize, or underline here. I don't really recommend using these too much just because it can be not really effective to use these things. But if you have to underline certain things or italicize certain things, I think it's fine. But I would just not use it too much. Okay. Your words should be the most important part. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about all the different topics here, but basically there are 7 different prompts, as we mentioned before, that you can pick from. Okay, and then you will pick actually which one of these. These are all radio buttons. So it's maximum 650 words. The minimum is 250 words. So technically you can write something that's like 251 words and send it in, although I wouldn't recommend that. The best essays that I see are probably between 550 to 650. So I would aim for that range. It doesn't mean that you have to write something that's like exactly 650 words or even like 649 words or something. But I would aim for more than 550 words to really utilize your space. Okay. And then this part I kind of mentioned earlier, this additional information portion. Don't overlook this part because it can be really useful for you. The first part here is just a COVID-19 one, anything about like special circumstances. If you don't have anything, at this point, you don't have to put anything, or any kind of natural disasters that maybe have impacted you, you can put that here. And then the second part is the other special circumstances, right? Details or circumstances or qualifications that are not reflected in the application. Notice here, you actually have a lot of space. This is like another 650 words of space for you to use to tell the college anything you want. I'm not advocating for using all 650 words here because that could be too much. However, notice that you have a pretty big space here, okay? You don't want to write a novel, okay? You don't need to kind of go over the top and write too much, but this will be a great place for putting any kind of research articles, okay? Or like publications, website, YouTube, or like social media links, okay? Anything here that can really showcase or like portfolio that could enhance your application and get the admission office to understand you and know you a little bit better. So this could be a really useful spot, okay? And then that's pretty much it. You just go in here. Once everything is filled out, you will be able to like basically go and submit a bunch of things. Okay, so this is how you can add, like you can have different colleges here, and the way you do this is just go here and say, okay, search for college. Let's just go ahead. I think University of Washington is actually in here. Okay, yes, right here. So it's actually here. And if you wanted to add other ones, you just click add, and then it will automatically pop up under your My Colleges. Okay, so you would say, so let's just, for example, go here into University of Washington. Then you go in here. Then you would say, okay, then the university has special questions. Okay, so you would go here. And every school is gonna may have some different questions. So this is where you would fill in the institutional special questions. So you would say, let's just say preferred start term is autumn, like fall of 2025. The reason it's saying that is because it's still in this old system. Once it's August 1st, then everything will refresh and it will say autumn 2026. Okay, so let's just say that for now. Preferred admission plan. This is where you would put in regular decision or early decision. University of Washington doesn't have an early decision, so you would just put regular decision. Okay. And then it will ask you academics. It will ask you different majors. First choice major, second choice major. It will ask you contact information. Just put your phone number. Residency, are you a citizen? Are you a resident of Washington State? It will ask you that. Some of these may be a little bit repetitive, but don't worry. Pretty straightforward. This is basically asking you if you have any special education programs. Are you homeschooled? Did you do IB, right? So just ask you a bunch of questions, and these are all college specific questions. Every college may have a little bit different questions here. There's also a space where you can upload your unofficial transcript. Okay. And then family information is going to ask you if you're a dependent or independent student. Legal guardian information. So some of this is repeated, but you do want to make sure that you want to fill out everything that the college is asking for, even if it feels like it's repeated. And then this is the writing section for University of Washington. So they actually have an essay here, which is very similar topic to one of the Common App topics, but it's a required question. Okay, so you do want to answer this specific question. And then it does have a short response. So this is one of the supplemental questions that they have. And this one is 300 words. Okay. And then there's another spot where you can put additional information. This is maximum 200 words. Okay, and then many schools will have an honors program. University of Washington does have an honors program. So if you want to apply for the honors program, this is where you would do it. And usually there is an extra essay that you have to write. So this one is an extra essay of no more than 450 words. Many schools will allow you to apply for their honors program after you've been accepted. But I always recommend, like, if you think that you're going to get into the school and you think you want to do the honors program, it's good to just apply for it as early as possible, because that's going to be your best chance to get into that honors program. And many times the honors program do come with some scholarships as well, which would be great. And there's just some more additional questions from University of Washington. Are you going to participate in sports? Okay. And then it's asking about, are you okay with, like, sharing your information to multiple campuses? A lot of state schools will have this question. Okay, and then that's it. That's pretty much the end. Okay. Let's see. What else am I missing? Go back to dashboard. Okay. We did the college search. We did my colleges. Okay, so University of Washington does not require, sorry. Okay, so now we have questions, right? We did the questions. The next part is recommenders. Okay, so this is where I was saying, like, the recommendation part is important. So we're just gonna click continue here. Okay, well, it's not gonna let me do that now because the term has passed, okay, because it hasn't refreshed yet. But this is basically where you would put in, your recommenders information. All it is like you put in the teacher's name, their email, and then they will get a email from the Common App, and then they can use that link to go in here and upload the recommendation letter. And then there will be a spot where you can monitor if that recommendation letter has been submitted already. So you should be able to see that. Okay. I see something in the chat. Okay. No questions. All right. Any questions there? I just want to pause a little bit and see if there's any questions.
I want to interfere a little bit. Lydia, could you please stop your video? Lydia, could you please stop your video? You are broadcasting video. Yeah. Lydia. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I see a question in the chat here. Honors program 有什么不同？是优先选课或者是小班上课。So every honors program for every school is going to be a little bit different. So for sure, like, sometimes the honors program will have different course options. Sometimes they will have special classes that only honors program students can take. Sometimes those classes will be smaller. Sometimes they have to do like a capstone project, like a special project. Sometimes the honors programs will have a special dorm where they will live in a different building or like a different floor that all the honors kids are like living together. And every college is a little bit different. So I would just research into the different colleges' honors programs and see if it's a right fit for you. Some honors programs actually are program specific. So they might be like a pre-med honors program or like a like pre-law or like a like computer science or technology entrepreneurship kind of honors program. So all of them can be a little bit different, but I would just look at the college itself. It may or may not be a good fit. Sometimes it is extra work because sometimes you have to do like a special project, but many times it is a good experience, just because most of the time like you will get some extra attention, or sometimes it's like a special internship opportunities, or it's like special volunteering or like leadership opportunities within the college. So those are just all things to look into, and of course many of them come with scholarships, which is always good as well. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to switch over back to the PowerPoint. So we have about 15 minutes. We'll just kind of quickly go through the essay process. Okay. So first of all, what is the main purpose of the essay? If we were in China or like Korea or any Asian country or even Europe, they basically just admit people based on grades or based on test scores. But what's different in the United States, like a lot of colleges, what's called a holistic application process. The main reason that they do this is because, people are more than just a number, right? People are more than just their grades or a score. So they do want to make sure that the student comes to college. The most important thing is that they want to make sure that the student actually graduates and finishes college, and on top of that, become a productive and successful member of society after they graduate that college. So ideally, then they can support the college more, they can give the college a great reputation, they can donate back to the college, whatever it is. So they want to make sure that the students who are coming to that college are a good fit. They're going to be happy at that college, they're going to graduate, they're mature enough for that college experience. And that's really what the essay is about, is to try to understand that. And also the recommendation letter as well, right? So that also plays into that. But kind of the bigger picture of like, why do I have to write this essay? It's really not so much about like how good of a writer are you, but it's more about how much do you understand yourself? It's kind of like self-reflection, right? Do I know myself enough to know my strengths, know my weaknesses, know what my passions are, know what I want to do? And that's what the essay is supposed to tell the college, okay? So what does it make up is, what are your contributions that you've made so far? What are some of the experiences? What are your beliefs? And what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about the world? What are some of your character traits, goals, values, basically who you are? And that's actually a very difficult question to answer for a lot of our teens, right? Because like I think it really requires a lot of reflection. So here again is our Common App essay prompts. There are 7 of them, and we're going to go through each one, but I just want to put it all here. But it's like, the main thing is it doesn't really matter too much which one you pick. I mean, it does matter a little bit, but the main thing is that you want to use this essay to tell the college who you are, okay? So first thing is just, what's your background and identity or interest that is like your application would be incomplete without it. So kind of like sharing your story. That's a very broad one. I mean, all of them are kind of broad, but that's a very broad one. Second one is about a challenge, like how did you overcome a challenge? The third one is reflecting on a time that you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. At first, maybe you thought this, but then you questioned yourself and then changed your thinking. The fourth one is reflect on a time that somebody did something for you that made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. This one is actually a new prompt. This was not there before. So I think it's been like maybe 2 or 3 years that this has been there. So this will be an interesting one. Number 5 is discussing an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. Now this could be very similar to number 1, but it's a little bit different. number 6 is like the passion question. Like, what do you do that is like so engaging that you lose all track of time? Like, what makes you tick? Like, what do you really love to do? And then number 7 is an open topic. So I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I would highly recommend to not gravitate towards this too quickly because it's actually the hardest one to write. Okay. All right. And I just also want to put on here the coalition application essays. So some colleges, as I mentioned before, are not on the Common App. So there's Common Application and there's coalition essay or coalition application, which is a totally different system. Some schools are only in the coalition application. And I think it's like a lot of the Texas schools are in the coalition and not in Common App. But I would recommend to not write 2 different essays, okay? I would say if you can, pick a topic and use it for both Common App and coalition, if you can, because some of them are actually almost identical or very similar. Okay. All right, so let's look at, so I would say today, like this is more of an overview. We are going to have another workshop where we go in depth about the application essay. So we're gonna kind of stay a little bit more on the surface level. We're gonna stay more on the topic selection level rather than diving deep into how to construct an essay, how to edit an essay, what is like an effective essay overall. We're gonna look at more from a topic, how to pick a topic perspective for today. So there will be a whole workshop on like analyzing and diving deep into the essays, okay? So the first one is tell your story. So really what they want to ask is like your background. So character development, who you are. This can be very broad, but if this is something you want to write about and you have a specific story, you can definitely pick this one. The challenge or obstacle. What do they really want to know is how do you handle difficulties? How do you handle a challenge? What have you done to become a resilient person? How do you resolve conflict? How do you grow? And what's your way of like reflecting and perspective, like finding perspective when you hit a setback or a failure? Because let's be honest, you know, when kids go to college, they are going to hit a lot of challenges, right? It's not going to be really easy. There's a big step going from high school to college. So how do you deal with that? And it's very challenging to actually write this in a not cliche way. Not going to go too much into it right now, but you don't want to just say, hey, I got a bad grade in a class and then I studied and then I overcome it and now it's good, you know? So don't write something like that, but it should be something like a little bit more personal and a little bit more unique. Okay, the third one here is when you question a belief. This is a pretty difficult one for a lot of kids, and I'll show you the data later that not a lot of people pick this one. So if you can do a good job on this one, you can really stand out. But what it really shows is self-awareness, self-evaluation, like critical thinking of thinking about your own beliefs and whether that is really what you believe or is it just something that you've been always told, right? Awareness of other people, almost like that emotional intelligence, EQ, right? Figuring out how to interact with others and having those like civil discussions, and even though maybe you disagree, you can still be friends. That is something that they're looking for here. And then this one's the gratitude one. I would say that if you're thinking about this one, it would be really great to think about a person or a teacher, a mentor, somebody who you really appreciate and who had a big impact on you. Because in college, many students, well, like not just college, but like life, you know, everybody needs really amazing mentors or helpful people in their life to make them successful. So when you can learn how to work with a mentor or a teacher and accept their help, accept their criticism sometimes, that can be really helpful. Not everybody knows how to do that, and certainly many teens don't know how to do that or to know how to appreciate that, right? So if you can show that you have a strong relationship with someone who like had a big impact on your life and made you grateful for that, that could be a great topic to look at. Okay. And then number 5 is accomplishment or growth. Now this is kind of difficult to write this one without sounding like really cocky, like to be too sounding like too much of bragging about yourself. But I think it's okay, like to write about something that maybe you worked hard and then you got that thing, right? Or maybe it's an event or something that you work towards, and even if it's not necessarily the kind of success that you're hoping for, but it helped you grow as a person, like that can be really good as well. And then this one is a passion one. This one, I think if you're a student who's like super passionate about a topic, and it doesn't even have to be the major that you want to do, it could be a hobby, it could be like a club or like a volunteering thing, it could be just like a project, or or like a reading like thing that you love to read about, or this could be something that you would pick. The danger here is that you don't want to pick something that is like, I just really want to play video games all the time, or like, I love to watch this movie and I love all the actors like in this movie. So you want to actually make it related to your character and your goals as much as you can. You don't want to just talk about something that is fun, but not related to like showing the college who you are. Okay. And then this one is number 7, basically the last one here. It's an open topic, it just says it can be anything. It can also be an essay that you already written for something else, or a topic of your own design. So I would say don't pick this unless you're really sure, and you should talk to somebody like before you pick this one, to make sure that your topic is actually sound and holds water. I would highly recommend, if you're going to pick number 7, to really design your own topic or prompt and then answer your own prompt. And it could be something fun, it could be something unique and interesting, but it needs to be something that's not just like, I don't know what to write about, I don't like any of the other topics, so I'm gonna just write about something random. It really shouldn't be that. If you know you're a great writer, if you know your writing is your strength, then I'd say, for my students, I say, if you know you're really good writer, you can pick it. But if you know you're not a great writer, you know that writing is not your forte, you're not a super good writer, then please don't pick this one, because this is the one that can go wrong in many ways. Okay. Okay, so just a quick look at the popularity. Open prompt, the accomplishment one, the challenge and obstacle one, the personal story one, these make up for the majority of all the essays that are picked. The other 3 is only 11%. Okay, so the passion one, gratitude one, or question of belief one, you can see there's actually a huge difference between the top 4 and the bottom 3 here. So, if you're a college admission officer and you see like another essay that's just talking about, oh, I hurt my knee when I'm playing soccer and then I had to overcome it and then I won the game, they're gonna see tons and tons of essays that are like that, but they're not gonna see as many that are talking about like, I used to believe this, but now I changed my mind because I had a conversation with somebody. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. If you are applying to a very selective school, I would recommend to pick something that is less common. I would steer you towards the bottom 3 if at all possible. It doesn't mean that you have to pick these 3. You definitely can write a wonderful essay, very standout essay in the top 4, but it will be a little bit harder to stand out. I see there's a question in the chat here. For activities, is it recommended to include activities related to a religion? Oh, for sure. I mean, it's totally fine. I mean, if you have volunteered at a church or part of a youth group or anything like that, it's certainly fine to put that in. And I think actually one of the like categories is actually religious activity. So I think it's totally fine. I mean, if you have more questions based on that, like I can certainly answer that one-on-one, but just because it's a religious activity, it doesn't mean you shouldn't put it on there. It's definitely fine to put it on. And it kind of depends too, like, you might think about what are the different activities and which ones are most important to you, and also which colleges you're applying to, right? If you're applying to colleges that is a religious college, then you may want to elevate that, and if that's an important part of who you are. But if it's kind of just like, okay, it's one of the activities, but it's not the most important activity, then it doesn't have to be like really high up on the list. Okay. All right, so here are just we're not gonna spend too much time on these, but maybe in the recording, or you can screenshot these, is just some ideas for brainstorming exercises. It's very difficult for students to go to like, these different topics here and just say, which one do I want to pick? And then they kind of get stuck sometimes of saying like, I don't know which one to pick. There's too many and I don't know which one I like. A easier way I often find is to not worry about which topic actually, and just start with a brainstorming exercise first. And then once you have some ideas, then you can say, okay, which topic does my essay fit into better? So it's a little bit backwards, but I think it works. The first one is just like brainstorming, what are some objects that you will take with you on a desert island? Why did you choose these objects? And what do these objects say about who you are? And then second one is just, okay, we kind of talk about this, but who are the people who are highly influential in your life? What is their relationship to you? How do they influence you? What is your reaction? Brainstorm some people. It doesn't have to be teachers, doesn't have to be parents. This could be a peer, it could be a friend, it could be a family friend, it could be, somebody you did a job shadow with, right? Number three, this is like kind of getting a little bit deeper and saying like, what is your value? What do you really care about? And sometimes when you start thinking like, when were you most angry at something or yourself, or ashamed or sad? And what was that event? What does that say about your values? Why did you care so much that you became angry and sad? And then what changes did you make in your life regarding that? So that will help you think about like what is important to you and who you are. And then number four, this is kind of the opposite, is like, when were you the most happy and what brings you the most joy, right? And this will also say about like, what are your goals? What do you want to do with your life? You don't want to just necessarily get a job and collect a paycheck. You want to feel like you're actually contributing to the world. You're making yourself better while you're serving others, and you're joyful when you're working because you love what you do, right? So these will be things to think about for exercise number 4. So if you do all these 4 exercises, and there may be some other ones, well, this will be a good place to start. Then you will have some topics to work with and then expand from there. Okay, so to summarize, what makes a good topic? First of all, it's okay to have multiple elements or multiple activities in one essay, as long as there is a unifying thread. You should be able to summarize the whole essay in one sentence, and this will be something that, students, you should know this already, but like any essay should have a thesis statement, and this essay is no different. You should be able to summarize your essay in one sentence, and then everything should jive, like everything should work together towards that one thesis. And then one I guess like way to see if your essay is good is to have your friend or family or teacher read it, and then they should be able to know, like after they read it, they should be like, oh, this essay is definitely written by you. It couldn't have been written by a different person. And when they say that, then like it's a good essay. Okay. It can be unique, unusual, or funny, but don't try to make it too weird, because I know like a lot of students, like they try to stand out and they try to make it really different and really weird. It doesn't always work. You want to stand out in a good way. You don't want to stand out in a super weird way. So there's a fine line between standing out in a good way and being like way too different, and then that's like, they just, people who read it, they just like don't get it or don't understand it. So this is why it's important to have another 2 or 3 people read it. Definitely have your teacher, whoever is writing a recommendation letter, they should be reading it. Your high school counselor should be reading it. Some students want their parents to read it, some not, and it's kind of totally up to you. But it's always good to have a different opinion. Don't get too many opinions though. Don't like have all of your friends read it, because sometimes, especially students who are like similar age groups, they may not necessarily be reading it from a perspective of an admission officer, so they could be steering you a little bit wrong. So just be aware of that. If you know it's a good essay, if you know you love what you wrote, it's important to kind of stick to your guns and go with it, even if like your friends are saying, oh, I don't like this part, but do listen to your teacher or counselor. They usually will have a lot of experience, and if there's something off about it, they will let you know. And then avoid cliches or like extremely popular topics. And some examples is like piano, or like violin. Another one like writing about a course, like writing about chemistry, or a very generic immigrant story. I know a lot of our students here may be first or second generation immigrants. It's okay to write about that as part of your background, but you do want to make sure that it's very specific to you and very unique, because many students will have an immigrant story, and if it's just a generic immigrant story, that it's probably not going to stand out. And then any kind of like sports, like injury win, we kind of talk about that. So we don't want those to be like just too popular, too similar to everything else. So that's pretty much the end of this workshop. Hopefully I'm still under time. Just a quick plug for our next session, August 23rd, Saturday. Is going to be same time, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be going more in detail for like the whole 4-year plan. And if we have students who are in middle school, I also welcome them to come, or parents of students in middle school, welcome them to come to get a little bit of preview of what's coming up in high school. We're going to go through the game plan for each grade level, so like for every grade level what you should be doing. And then we'll be talking about application timeline, early versus regular, all the different ways that you can apply, kind of strategize a little bit. We'll also talk about how to stand out among similar applicants, as well as some common mistakes in the application process. And then if parents want to come, this will be a great time for both parents and students to come. I'll be talking just a little bit more about like how parents can support their teens, because I think this is a common question I get from a lot of parents is, oh, okay, like I want my student to do well, like I want them to do this, but they're not listening to me, or they don't care, or I want them to do this, but they just procrastinate. Or it's very, very common for those things, those concerns. So I do want to give some advice for parents who are working very hard to support their teens. So that's pretty much all I have for the formal part of this presentation. I'm going to stop sharing right now so I can see you guys. Yeah, so I think we'll just open it up for questions.
Yeah, anyone who don't want to type, you can just unmute yourself and ask question. Yeah.
Okay, so I see
Hi,
a question. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Jen, I got a quick question about the award earlier when you mentioned about awards, right? Does it have to be in like you earn it as an individual, or can be you earn it as a team, as a team member of a team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think it's okay to put it in if it's a team award, right? Because a lot of our activities, like whether it's like a mock trial or like a debate team or like a sports team, like Science Olympiad, it's more than one person and you're a member of that team. So if you won that award and you're a member of that team, then it's definitely okay to put in that award. Just make sure like when you put it in there, just say it is a team award. Just be honest like with what it is. And that should be fine. So it's definitely okay to have that in there if it's a team award.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think that also reminded me of one thing is that many schools will have either a required or optional resume section. So if you have more than 5 awards, like say you had, 6 awards, right? Maybe you had 2 team and 4 individual, whatever. You can decide which ones are the most important ones to put in as your top 5. And then, but in your resume, you can list all of your awards.
Hi, Jennifer. I have a question. Is the recommend letter mandatory that you must provide? And does the student will have any idea that what the teacher will be writing in the letter, or you just cannot see?
That's a great question. Yeah. So the recommendation letter is going to depend on the school. Not every school is going to require recommendation letter. Many of the highly selective colleges will require 2 teacher recommendation letters, and then one high school counselor recommendation letter. So most of the time, the high school counselor letter is required. The teacher letters are required by many schools that are highly selective. Some schools will require 1 teacher. Some schools will be optional recommendation letters. And some schools they will not accept any recommendation letters. So it kind of just really depends on the school. And then some schools will allow for optional recommendation letters. Actually, most of the highly selective schools will allow for extra recommendation letters. So you have 1 high school counselor letter, 2 teacher letters, plus 1 or 2 extra recommendation letters. So say you did research or you did volunteering like outside of school, usually I would recommend to have an outside recommender. So that's either like a work boss or like a volunteering coordinator or somebody who is actually not from your high school. And then the other part of the question was whether you're going to see the recommendation letter. The answer is no, because when you're in the application, you actually check a box, and it is required that you check the box. It's a FERPA. Basically, it just means that you're waiving your right to see the letter, and it's pretty much required for you to do that because you do want, or the colleges want, the teachers and the counselors to write honestly what they think of the student without feeling like that the student is going to read the letter. So it's actually very important to, like I mentioned before, it's very important to have a great conversation with your teacher, have a meeting with your teacher, have a meeting with your counselor, talk about what you want them to write for you. Don't just say, hey, can you write a recommendation letter for me? And they say, okay, and then that's it. That's really not enough. You do need to like sit down with that teacher once, maybe twice, show them your application essay, tell them the list of colleges that you're applying to, show them your resume, ask them like, what do you plan to write for my letter? I think it's okay to even give them a few bullet points of saying like, these are the experiences that I have in your class. Would you mind writing about these specific memories or specific like instances that I did these things? And if the teacher is like really loves that student, if the teacher is like really wants to help that student, keep in mind, when teachers write these recommendation letters, these are outside of their regular job duties. Okay, this is not what they're getting paid for. So it's really just going the extra mile for the student. So you don't want a teacher just to, especially like a lot of the high school teachers were English teachers, or they're just nice teachers or very popular teachers. Many students will be asking them. Some teachers will get 20, 30 different requests for letters. I mean, do you think they're going to really write all of those letters, like spend a lot of time on every single letter? I think it really depends on how much effort the student puts in to make sure that those letters are well written for that student. Now, on the flip side, if the teacher really likes the student and really wants to write a strong letter for that student, many times the teacher will actually give a copy of their letter to the student. Now it's completely up to the teacher whether they want to do that, and this would be completely outside of the Common App platform. So this would be the teacher whether like emailing the student or just handing the student a hard copy of saying, look, this is a letter I gave you. That's completely up to the teacher, and it would not be professional for the student to ask the teacher. So don't ask your teacher for a letter. But if your teacher just like really loves you and wants to show that like they did a great job for you, so sometimes the teacher will on their own accord give a letter to the student so that they have that as a kind of a memento or kind of like a memory. And that's happened with some of the students, and usually those are obviously like the really great letters. But it doesn't mean that if you don't get a copy that is not good. I wouldn't expect the student or the parents to have access to that letter. That's usually not the norm. Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, no problem.
There is a question in the common area for sports. Is it okay to write like a volunteer? Can you answer that?
Yeah, so for sports, is it okay to write volunteer, teach little kids, work with other people, not injury? Okay, so I think this question is referring to the essay topic. I think definitely, if you want to write about like volunteering with sports, teaching them about the sport, working with other people, I mean, I'm not saying like you can't write about sports. It's just being aware that when you're writing about a topic, it should be very unique to you, right? Like if you just say, I volunteered and I helped teach kids about soccer, and then, good for me, that's great. That's not necessarily going to stand out too much. And without knowing the student, I wouldn't necessarily know like what's the next like level. You do want to dig deep. So one analogy would be, you're digging and the top surface might just be soccer, right? And then if you dig deep like one level, it's kind of like helping others and like communication skills, right? So that's one level deeper. But then what's one level deeper like under that? Like, why do you teach little kids? Why do you care? Like, and what did you learn from it, right? That's the next level. And then what character traits or what values does that say about you? That'll be kind of the next level, right? Like, why are you doing this sport versus a different sport? Why are you teaching little kids? And why are you not teaching adults, And then what did you learn from those experiences? Like, did you encounter any conflicts? Did you encounter any problems like with little kids or with the parents? How did you solve those problems? And then when you get into that level of detail, then is where your character will actually come through and your experience will be different than any other people's experience, right? So it's not to say like you cannot write about sports or write about an injury or anything like that. It's just my advice to go as individual and unique in your experience as possible to avoid just being like another essay about whatever, sport topic that anybody could have written. So this essay should be something that only you could have written because it's about your personal experience and how you grew and how you matured like from that experience. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, by the way too, like I do have a WeChat group for 9th through 12th grade. I think what I can do is just put that link in the WeChat group. That way, if anybody's interested, they can join that WeChat group and you can always ask me questions there. And another thing that I did announce in that group is that if anybody has draft essays that they want a second opinion, like I mentioned before, you always want to get a second opinion. I am doing free feedback for everybody who is in the WeChat group. So I can't do it for everybody, too many people, but if you're in my WeChat group, then you can certainly send me your draft, and then I will get you some feedback within a few days or a week. So I do want to offer that as a kind of like a freebie for people who may need that just extra set of eyes to look at your essay. Okay. Any other questions?
I do have a question. You talked about the 7 topics, and then one of them, or maybe 2 of them, were somewhat new that was included in recent years. Do you expect additional new topics?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I don't think we will get any more new topics. These topics that are announced are the official topics for this coming school year. They typically don't change those topics very often. Like out of the 7 topics, only one of them changed, like in the past, I don't even know, like 10 or 15 years. So you're pretty safe. I wouldn't worry too much about like them changing the topic like really often. What does sometimes change is the supplemental essay topics from the individual colleges will change more often. So that is something to keep an eye on. But a lot of times they're shorter, you know, so they're less of a time commitment to write. They're 200 words, 250 words, 300 words, you know, something like that. So those topics are going to be like more often. Sometimes they will change every 2 or 3 years. But the Common App essays have always really stayed pretty much the same, except that like what are you grateful for? Like what was something that's somebody has done for you that you're grateful for in a surprising way or something like that. That one was a new one that came about, but I would argue that it's not that different like compared to the other topics, you know, like again, you know, there's not really like one right topic for any student. I think you can really tell your story through many different topics. So I will still kind of go back and say, do your brainstorming without worrying too much about the topics. Really think about who you are, how you're different than everyone else, like what your experiences has been different than anybody else. And then from that, actually then go back and just pick one of those topics that kind of fits. And if it really doesn't fit, it's totally okay to pick number 7, as long as you're really sure about that. Okay, yeah, link to WeChat group. I think everybody who is in the Zoom is also in the VCA 大学申请讲座 WeChat group. So I will, after this webinar, I will share the link to that, like the 9th through 12th grade group there. So rather than doing it here on Zoom, so I think it'll be easier for everybody if it's actually just in WeChat. So it'll probably be easier for you all. Okay, any other questions? Repost number 5. Okay. You just want to see the essay topic number 5, Lydia? Okay, this one. This one, the accomplishment one? Okay. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and unmute, Lydia? What question do you have about this?
No, I don't. I just I just took picture, for my kids.
Oh,
Share
okay.
with him. But he's not
Oh,
here today. Thank you
sorry.
very much.
No
And
problem.
you're speaking very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, do you guys think 你觉得大家需要这个 slides 吗？我实际是可以就是把这个 slides 分享给大家。I can share the slides as well with you if it's helpful. I mean, I don't know, maybe I went through a
你
little bit too fast.
我看 Jennifer 的可以把 slides 给我们，我们把它放到协会的网站上，那么大家都可以登录我们协会的网站，可以看得到，好不好？
是的 Okay. Yeah, I can share the slides in the WeChat group. Yeah.
我想问一下，你有没有这个 Zoom 的就是今天 Zoom meeting 的那个video？因为我孩子今天有活动，他就没有参加这个。
会长。
我们协会到时候会把它放到我们协会的，也是放到我们协会的网站上。
OK， 好的，
登录。
好，非常感谢。
好的，好，不客气。
好，那没有别的问题，就谢谢大家。然后我把我的I'll just 把我的 email and phone number put in the chat. Okay.